Welcome to a prologue of a upcoming episode and a testing of live features. This is our technical trial of our live streaming capabilities. Like I mentioned, it is also a prologue to a full-on Dune conversation that the Branch and I will be doing next, that will go into everything about Dune. This one is kind of a little special treat as a teaser, and I came across something very interesting that is tied to Dune in a way, and so I thought this would be a cool little experiment for all of us to do, a episode 0, a pilot, if you will. And this episode is going to be called a current stream, or a study stream, a study current. Yeah, that's what I'm calling my live streams, a study current. And the subtitle is God Emperor Mandy of Dune Network. So we're going to be talking about Dune, we're going to be talking about cartoons and influences, and Dennis and his opinions and ideas towards the future, the latter half of the Dune books, and all that fun stuff. Of course, with me is the Branch. Welcome back to Branch.
Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, we're going to be talking about the show, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, because they've had a scattering of Dune references and even a parody episode of God Emperor Dune. That's the fourth book in this Dune series?
That is correct.
Glad I got that correct. And I think we might have a Wikipedia page for The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy.
We do.
And as we're getting that pulled up, how I came across this, I wasn't just randomly watching Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. I was actually on social media, and I saw a video that the official Cartoon Network account shared of a clip show of a bunch of the Dune references from Billy and Mandy. And I was like, I think I remember that. Yeah, I didn't realize this was a Dune reference. Especially in the kids show. That's very interesting. So let's see what we think about all this. So there's God Emperor Dune.
Oh, sorry, I clicked the wrong tab.
Oh, you're fine. Okay, so here's the show. If you are not familiar with it, or, if you didn't watch it, or if it wasn't your age demographic, This is a cartoon from Cartoon Network. And it was from the year 2001 to 2007, it looks like. Yeah, did you maybe want to read a bit of the premise there?
At the top here?
Yeah, you can read a little bit of the top and scroll down and read a little bit of the
Oh, I'm
premise.
see. Sorry, I didn't notice. I thought you was just using the word premise. I didn't realize it was a word on the screen. Yeah, sure. The series is centered around the exploits of Billy, Richard Stephen Horvitz's character, an idiotic and happy-go-lucky boy. Mandy, Gray de la Cille, a cynical, cold-hearted, and tomboyish girl. And Grim, Greg Eagles' character, a Jamaican accented reaper. After Billy and Mandy cheated at a limbo match against Grim in retaliation for putting the limbo rod too low for them to go under, he is enslaved in a permanently unwanted friendship with the children. Grim is miserable in his first days with his servitude and even fantasizes about killing them multiple times. However, as time passes, he gradually adapts to the new life and even grows to care for Billy and Mandy, if only somewhat. Despite this, he retains a love-hate relationship with the two and desires to eventually break free from his servitude. Billy and Mandy use Grimm's supernatural abilities and powers to venture into supernatural locations or environments such as the underworld or the netherworld, inhabited by an assortment of grotesque, monstrous beasts. The pair also uses Grimm's enormously strong supernatural abilities or ties with a number of beastly characters to achieve goals or desires for themselves, often with twisted results. Famed fictional monsters, including Dracula, the Wolfman, and the Boogeyman, are also comically depicted in the series. It's quite an
Thank
interesting
you.
show.
Yes. And
So this is the only episode that I've ever watched. Well, it was a. Are they all kind of only 11 minutes, and there's like 3
yeah, there's usually
miniature
two.
episodes?
Yeah, there's 2 to 3 episodes. They're usually around 11 minutes per, or 2 to 3 segments per episode. I mean, and usually around 11 minutes each or so. Do you have a tab up for just that episode?
Not for that
Uh,
specific episode. Couldn't necessarily
um,
find one for
okay,
that.
okay, that's fine. You had an article about it though, right? That tied it to
I
Dune.
do have an article about it. Yes,
That could
here it
also
is.
work to get us launched into a conversation here. So yeah, here's a bit of a article that kind of talks about the special Dune parody of the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Did you want to read a little bit of that, Branch?
Sure. Frank Herbert's Dune is an exquisite book and a science fiction masterpiece. On the surface, it tells an entertaining and well-crafted adventure about a young boy who avenges the death of his family and rises to become emperor. Beneath that, though, it is a very dense narrative with complex themes of religion, politics, and ecology. In Herbert's later books, however, the Dune universe gets weird as hell. There are clones, mutants, dogs that look like chairs, and much more. That being said, easily no aspect of the book series is as bizarre and memorable as the character Leto II becoming a sandworm. In Herbert's God Emperor Dune, book number 4, the son of Paul Atreides decides to lead humanity into a better future by transforming into a human sandworm hybrid that could live for thousands of years and rule with an iron fist. It makes sense that something as outlandish as this has never made it to the big screen in any of the Dune adaptations. Sadly, not even Denis Villeneuve seems interested in the prospect. Sadly,
Yeah.
choosing instead to focus on adapting Dune Messiah as the end of his potential Dune film trilogy, which, hey, that's at least a little bit of a nugget, right? So that's the end. That would be book 2, Dune Messiah. Then there's Children of Dune, book 3, and Leto and his sister are born, and then Leto becomes God Emperor of Dune in book 4.
Something that
as it were.
I was just going to say something that we'll get into more in our full-on Dune discussion video is things like how Denis has said that he is flat out afraid of the later books for their overly esoteric meaning, and that's one of his main reasons of saying he's ending with the second book, Dune Messiah. Yeah, I think if you want to go on there.
Does he speak English, Denis Villeneuve?
I believe so. I've heard him speak English in videos, so he's got an accent.
Oh, okay.
But
I was just wondering, maybe because English isn't his first language, maybe that makes the books harder to understand. As it were, Villeneuve's Dune Part 2 is a bleak blockbuster that is primarily focused on Paul's story and the cautionary tale of believing in messianic figures. That means the movie has less time to showcase the weirder parts of its source material, the intricate politics of the Dune universe, or even the ecology of the primary setting of Arrakis, which is, of course, central to the story. Still, there is one sort of adaptation of God Emperor of Dune already, specifically a cartoon homage. That would be a reference to The Grim Adventures of Bill and Mandy, an year Cartoon Network show about two kids, Billy and Mandy, who befriended the Grim Reaper after beating him in a game of Limbo. You know, Chris, I just played Limbo about a week or so ago. Yeah.
I was at a party. Did you cheat?
I did not, actually. I didn't even realize I was so good at it. I think what gave me the edge, however, is that I happened to be wearing socks, and we were on like a hardwood floor, so I was kind of able to like scoot in such a manner that made it probably easy. So maybe I did cheat, because other people were like barefoot, you know. But everybody was doing well. It was impressive. I had a nice burn on my leg muscles for like a few days afterwards too, so it was a pretty good workout. But yeah, you know, limbo was something that I did think about. It seemed like a strange word to me.
Yeah.
That I hadn't thought of in a while. Because normally when I think of limbo, I think of like spiritual limbo.
Yeah.
Here the kids, you know, are playing limbo and they're with the Reaper. And
yeah, you're in the in-between. You're in between a pole and the ground, trying not to fall.
Yeah. And so they're playing limbo against this guy, and he puts the bar too low, huh? So they couldn't go any lower, I suppose. And so unless you're a worm, maybe God Emperor Leto is pretty good at limbo.
Yeah. And probably breakdancing.
How low can you crawl? Or low. So, yeah,
Yeah,
this is a pretty interesting article because it just came out a matter of days ago,
yeah.
and
Is there any more?
very few
Um,
references are ever made to God Emperor. Oh,
yeah,
there's more to the article. Pardon me. Here's a picture from this particular episode. So,
those.
what this is kind of pointing out is that in the book, God Emperor Leto does have a weakness, but it's not frogs. But
It's not
in the
frogs.
cartoon, she tells the Duncan, Idaho clone that her weakness is frogs, and then he, of course, goes straight to the Resistance and tells them that it's frogs, and then they boldly attack with frogs, and of course, her weakness is not frogs, and then she imprisons them promptly. So
I
we'll
fed you lies to get
continue
back to
reading.
the resistance.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in the first segment of season 2, episode 3, Mandy the Merciless, as you can see her moniker M. Mandy gets a vision of the future in which she learns the secret of immortality by transforming into a giant worm hybrid. She now rules the world, much like Leto II, by controlling the supply of spice. More specifically, she controls cinnamon, which is what spice melange smells like, according to the Dune books. The sight of the little mutant worm girl is already hilarious, but the fact that it's an overt and very deliberate homage to God Emperor of Dune, a story no child who watches Cartoon Network could be familiar with, is golden. The parody doesn't stop there. Just like Leto II awakes clones of the character Duncan Idaho through the ages to have somebody to talk to, Mandy unfreezes clones of Billy who keep dying off in ridiculous ways or get killed by Mandy, which is, of course, what happens to the Duncans in the book. That Cartoon Network would never allow such a bizarre parody as hilarious. Cartoons are full of homages and parodies of things kids aren't familiar with. That's part of the fun, but God Emperor of Dune is just such a specific choice with such a long history and context that it is ignored in favor of memorable iconography in all the Dune adaptations so far. Yet it works as a part of cartoon that is full of monsters and other strange creatures like this one. Speaking with Sci-Fi Wire, creator Maxwell Adams once described the episode as, quote, probably my favorite parody we ever did because of how obscure the reference was. This was a very postmodern show, and I don't know if I could even do another one like it, let alone have it greenlit today, he added. Dune Part 2 is now playing in theaters. It continues at the bottom of the article.
There you go.
And
Thank you for reading that.
It's the conclusion
Yeah.
of that article.
Yeah, that is so.
Oh, and I read the premise for this.
Yeah. Next, if you wanted
Did mention the
to.
author, though.
Oh, yeah, we can read a little bit about Maxwell Adams for sure. And I didn't have time today to scrub through all the interviews he's ever done, but I have seen one in the past where he's talked about his paranormal and occult influences. So this is a man who is, savvy to these themes, these ideas. You have characters within the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, like Nurgle. You have Cthulhu. You have a parody of Ash from The Evil Dead. You have other gods and goddesses, like in the second segment after the Dune segment of that episode, there was one involving a goddess. It was
Eris.
Eris, and so and even not even just in mainly or is it merciful, whatever it is. There's other episodes that Cartoon Network shared in that social media post from the Grim Adventures of Billy Mandy, where there is one-off Dune references, like a character literally named the Baron saying fears the mind killer to one of the other characters doing the box test, putting their hand in the box.
Right.
One is even dressed up as Sting's Fade character in that iconic blue underwear Speedo thing that he wears in the David Lynch version, which apparently Sting gifted to Austin Butler, the new Fade character. Again, more on that in our larger full-on Dune discussion. So yeah, there's obviously Maxwell is also inspired by Dune, among other esoteric themes, and he has created a children's show based around these things that he is fascinated by. And did you maybe want to read a little bit about him?
Sure. So this is the creator of the cartoon, and his name is Adam Maxwell Burton, known professionally as Maxwell Atoms. He is an American animator, screenwriter, storyboard artist, and voice actor. He is the creator of Cartoon Network's series Grim and Evil, and its subsequent spin-offs, The Grim Adventures of Bill and Mandy and Evil Khan Came. His career is listed below here. Adams is the creator of Cartoon Network's animated television series The Grim Adventures of Bill and Mandy, Evil Khan Came, and has developed a Bill and Mandy spin-off Halloween special called Underfist Halloween Bash. Adams attended the University of Arts in Philadelphia before he started working on his own series. Adams was an interim at the Film Roman, a freelance artist at Warner Brothers, had a brief stint at Wild Brain, and had also worked on The Twisted Tales of Felix the Cat. Adams got a job at Hanna-Barbera, and as a story and storyboard artist on the Cow and Chicken and I Am Weasel shows. Adams also performed the voice of Jeff the Spider and Piff on The Grim Adventures of Bill and Mandy, and voiced Cod Commando on Evil Khan Came. He also voiced several additional characters in the TV movie Bill and Mandy Big Boogie Adventure. That sounds like a classic. Adams is also good friends with a fellow animator, Mr. Warburton, creator of Codename Kids Next Door, and C.H. Greenblatt, the creator of Chowder and Harvey Beaks. He and Warburton have made several references to each other's shows and have made a cross half-hour special, The Grim Adventures of the Kids Next Door. As for CH, he voiced the character Fred Fredberger in several episodes of Bill and Mandy, alongside a brief cameo of Chowder and Underfist. Adams was also an executive producer and voice actor of the Disney show Fishhooks with Noah Z. Jones. As of 2012, Adams began developing a new project entitled Dead Meat. Quote, an awesome black comedy, buddy action puppet gore web series, end quote, which was still in production as of January 2020, and had a successful Kickstarter campaign as of November 15th, 2013. In an interview in 2013, Adams stated that the series would be posted somewhere on the internet once it had been finished. In early 2014, Adams stated that he hopes to get the series released in 2015. This fell through, and in early 2020, Adams announced that the project is shelved indefinitely, and that all the backers will be refunded due to the expensive costs and contractual issues. In 2016, he began working on a new series called Bunnicula. The show ended in 2018.
There you go. That's good enough. So
well,
yeah,
he's in Has Been Hotel too. Apparently,
yeah,
that was the next thing, which that's just come out too. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So you're seeing a trend of dark occult cartoons that he's involved with, and so of course someone like him or Pendleton Ward, the creator of Adventure Time, who also was into the esoteric, and it comes through with in their work. And so, of course, they're going to know things like God Emperor Dune. Did you want to read a little bit of the God Emperor Dune Wikipedia page?
Sure.
And then and then we can start talking about them after this.
God Emperor of Dune is a science fiction novel by American writer Frank Herbert, published in 1981, the fourth in his Dune series of 6 novels. It was ranked as number 11 hardcover fiction bestseller of 1981 by Publishers Weekly. The plot. Leto II Atreides, the God Emperor, has ruled the universe as a tyrant for 3,500 years after becoming a hybrid of human and giant sandworm in the Children of Dune. The death of all other sandworms as a result of the terraforming of Arrakis and his control of the remaining supply of the all-important drug melange has allowed him to keep civilization under his complete command. Leto has been physically transformed into a worm, retaining only his human face and arms. And though he is now seemingly immortal and invulnerable to harm, he is prone to an instinct-driven bouts of violence when provoked to anger. As a result, his rule is one of religious awe and despotic fear. Leto has disbanded the last strand, but all but a few great houses. The remaining powers defer to his authority, although they individually conspire against him in secret. The Fremen have long since lost their identity and military power, and have been replaced, as the Imperial army, by the Fish Speakers, an all-female army who obey Leto without question. He has rendered the human population into a state of transgalactic stagnation. Space travel is non-existent to most people in his empire, which has had a deliberately kept each planet to a near medieval level of technological sophistication. All of this he has done in accordance with the prophecy, divine through precognition, that will establish and enforce peace, preventing humanity from destroying itself through aggressive behavior. The desert planet Arrakis has been entirely transformed by terraforming into a lush forested biosphere, with the exception of the Sarir, a single section of desert retained by Leto for his citadel. A string of Duncan, Idaho Golas has served the Leto over the millennia, and Leto has also fostered the bloodline of his twin sister, Ganima. Her descendant, Monio Atreides, is Leto's major domo. This is Grim in the act, the little reenactment that they did. Major domo, Monio is Grim, and the closest confidant, while Monio's daughter, Siona, has become the leader of an Arrakis-based rebellion against Leto. So whenever Monio goes to the rebels in the skit, that's kind of revealing the connection here. Again, another level to it. She steals a set of secret records from his archives, not realizing that he has allowed it. Leto intends to breed Siona with the latest Duncan Gola, but he is aware that the Gola, moved by his own mortality, may try to assassinate him before this can occur. If you like, I can.
That's good.
There's quite a bit.
Yeah. I'm gonna close this for a second.
I don't think the rest of this is really mentioned in the skit anyway.
Yeah. That's enough for our conversation. What?
Yeah, because they don't get into it in the show. They don't go past that part anyway.
Yeah, for a sort of a segment it is. Yeah, so like I mentioned, we have these very complex themes of philosophy and ethics. And what else would you say would be the themes of the story branch, in your opinion?
Of God Emperor?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you would say ethics, because he does kind of talk about that a lot. But I'd say like statecraft. One of the things that I found very appealing about reading God Emperor was how he's always talking about affairs of state, how to manage populations. Because mind you, he's governing over multiple planets. It's not just the planet of Arrakis, but he's managing an entire empire. And, he just does it with such finesse and eloquence. It's just, it almost seems admirable in a way, even though he's a tyrant. There's like a certain beauty or art to how he operates his kingdom, and he creates what's known as Leto's peace. And like it was saying here, where he keeps technology artificially absent, where he'll make laws saying it's outlawed, but then he himself will use technologies that he's outlawed. So, he often contradicts himself. He'll also use elements of chaos as well to kind of maintain his stranglehold on governance. So I think it's kind of interesting that episode 2 in that little miniature trilogy is that what about Eris, the goddess of chaos and discord.
Yeah, Billy or Mandy and Grim are going to go fishing, and then Billy decides he wants to come, and they say, "No, you can't come because the last time you did, you got bored and you was annoying and you just kept moaning the entire time, and then it wasn't fun for us." And he promises he's not going to moan, and then cuts to him in the boat going moan, um, and um, then as the fishing, Eris comes, the goddess of chaos, and she's like, "Hey guys, what's up?" And they're Mandy and Grim aren't really impressed, and she's like, "You want to see the use of this apple?" And she's got her golden apple that when she throws it, it causes chaos. And um, Grim remarks, "Well, you're grounded," because she's supposed to be like a teenager, like a valley girl teenager version of Eris the goddess. Um, and Grim remarks, "Well, you can't use it. Your dad grounded you from using your apple." And she goes, "Yeah, but he didn't tell me that I couldn't find other people to use the apple through." And then she literally fishes Billy up with a fishing pole and tries to get him to use the apple for her to cause chaos because she just wants chaos to happen. Um, and of course, Billy being um, extremely stupefied, extremely dunce, extremely aloof. Um, he does everything but use the apple, to where Eris just basically hangs out with him, waiting for him to eventually use the apple. And he is with his dunceness. He causes his own version of chaos, which becomes too much for Eris. It's not the kind of fun chaos that she likes when she uses her apple. It's out of her control. The chaos is out of her control. And so Billy's version of chaos drives her away, and then Mandy and Grim walk back into the scene and goes, and Mandy remarks right on cue as Eris runs away, and inferring that she knew that was going to happen, and that's why they wasn't worried about her trying to use Billy to use her chaos at Golden Apple. Something that I would kind of add into right here is at the beginning of every episode of The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, it starts off with the screen being completely black, and Mandy pops in somehow from one direction or whatnot, and looks right at the audience and makes a cynical, uh, gloomy remark, you could say. And it's always different every episode. And this one, she says, I forget the line exactly, but it's something about evolution, which I think is interesting because the first segment of this 3-segment episode is the Dune God Emperor Dune parody, Mandy the Merciful, and of course it shows her evolution into becoming the God Emperor, the Worm. And then there was mentions of bugs in the other two segments, of course. But I thought that was interesting as well, especially because they're pushing, they're basically pushing evolution in a kid show, among other things, um, with that remark at the beginning. Um, so yeah, there's that. Anything that you wanted to add, Branch?
I just think it's fun to catch this because it just kind of came out of nowhere. I'd never heard about this cartoon. Well, I think I maybe had noticed it before, but never watched it. And so I would have never gotten to watch it before. And I think it was like I said, there was some deep levels to it, so you could tell that this person, these people had probably even read the books recently, to be able to include the nice little nuanced just within 11 minutes, right? Is that all it
Yeah,
was, you said? So just
yeah,
within 11 minutes they had somehow managed to like capture a part of the essence of God Emperor. And so for so long I've wanted to see God Emperor on the silver screen, but nobody's taken it on. And here, lo and behold, even on the Dune page down in popular culture, the only thing listed was this cartoon. So they truly are probably like the only people that have ever taken a crack at it. But it's
and
so good.
possibly
It really
will be
is.
the only ones to try.
Yeah. And I think
Um,
Villeneuve could have probably done a trilogy still, but done it backwards. Like started with book 4 of God Emperor Dune and then told the story backwards to Dune. And I think
yeah,
he could have pulled it off probably.
almost do the Star Wars route.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, um,
Which would have been totally new.
yeah. Totally new, totally different. For someone who is familiar and has read um, the Dune series and that has the knowledge of it as yourself, would you say that um, despite the goofy cartoonness, it was true to a very broad version of its themes of the story?
Well, yeah, because again, as I was watching it, I was able to identify the characters. So obviously, Mandy is clearly God Emperor. So the genders swapped there, but it wouldn't have really worked with Billy, though. So um, with the gender in that case, the gender's not so important. What it was important was getting the personality more
Yeah,
correct, right? I did
yeah,
notice her eyes are red and not blue, though.
yeah. Here
Um,
we go. Here's an image of them.
so that's one minor difference, I suppose. But you speculated that maybe they didn't want to get too close to the real thing for
Yeah,
copyright reasons, maybe.
yeah. Probably we didn't want to get too close to the real thing. Or another thing is maybe Blue Eyes just didn't fit with her character design. Sometimes when you're designing a character, um, depending on the personality, the art style, the tones, um, the clothing, sometimes the blue eyes or a shirt or whatever will stick out and not feel cohesive enough. So,
I just felt like that was the only thing they could have really added that would have really cemented the reference, though. Because, most of the time when you think of Dune, you think of what? The blue eyes, right?
yeah.
Spice. So, but yeah, oftentimes, and there'll be scenes in book 4 where Monio, which is Grimm here in this case, is just hanging out with God Emperor, chatting with him, and he's dutifully serving him for eons because, of course, he's given access to the spice. He can live forever. And so he's just serving him as his general, chief of staff, basically, and executes all of his orders and makes sure everything is operating how it should be. And then, of course, you got your comedic relief type Billy character here, who's playing the Duncan role. And so they show a scene where there's thousands of Billies being cloned, and they basically break them out of the test tube and wake them up. And then the book, of course, every time this happens with a Duncan, there's a process that has to take place, because there's a little bit of a shock and then an adjustment period. And sooner or later, the Duncans would either die because of accident, or a fit of rage from the worm part of Leto. Like once in a while, he would thrash about in his sleep or something like that and kill Duncans that way by accident. But other times, what it was normally, well, not normally, but what would eventually happen is that because of Duncan's morality that was inherent within his cellular structure, which made him very much well liked by the Atreides, made him good and well suited to serve them. He would have had more loyalty to Monio in this case, being a Atreides descendant as well, than he would have had to God Emperor, because God Emperor was so far removed from being an Atreides himself that eventually the Duncan would rebel and try to kill God Emperor. So it kind of gets to that point too, because in the book 4, it jumps way far ahead because the Duncan does conspire with the rebels, Sinoa, Monio, Grimm's daughter in this case, to kill God Emperor with his
which kind of
weakness.
happens in the Billy and Mandy episode. As well.
Except they fail.
Yeah.
Because it's not frogs, and she just chooses to and then imprison them, and that's kind of where the episode ends. But yeah, you see something similar kind of happen in the book. So yeah, they really did a good job. I mean, you could tell that whoever wrote the skit had a pretty thorough understanding. I mean, I don't know where you can't watch a movie and get it. You would have had to read the book and to know the story, So I was impressed. I mean, it was quirky and funny, I mean, they weren't trying to get every single thing right, but they got enough right that it made a pretty good reference. But like I said, I think the blue eyes was a low hanging fruit. They should have.
Yeah. Also, something that some people forget about Mandy's character design is her hair is purposely supposed to make her look like she's got devil horns.
Well, yeah,
all the time.
Definitely did that right. And she also governs over all the cinnamon, right?
Yeah.
So that's how she became powerful, and so clearly that's a reference to the spice melange, which I do have
we have here
a link for that
right here.
So the reason that this was so sought after is because this was basically this is the waste product of sandworms, which live on Arrakis or Dune. So they would produce this and the sand as a waste product, and so it would get concentrated in the sand in certain areas, and eventually you could come along and harvest it and they would use it as a drug that people would take, and it would actually prolong their life. So you could think of it like in a way that salt preserves things. Well, here's this salty substance of sorts that is preserving their life and extending it well beyond where it should be. And so the entire galactic empire runs on this spice, and so it becomes like a currency. So basically, to mock it in this skit, they're talking about her taking over cinnamon production and cinnamon mines. Because the melange spice in the books was said to smell like cinnamon. So yeah, the sandworm's breath.
Who doesn't like cinnamon?
Right?
On some apples, on some, chips, some Cheetos.
But imagine if eating cinnamon made you live longer, how much more valuable it would be, right? So there you kind of get into this essence of the spice there, But
Yeah.
everybody,
it's interesting that they mentioned that it smelled like cinnamon, because I I would assume if it was paralleling any spice in our world, probably my first guess would be turmeric.
it is similar to that, and maybe nutmeg.
Yeah.
Because
Which,
nutmeg actually has
excuse me.
psychedelic properties,
Yeah.
like the spice.
Which it makes sense because in curry powder, because curry powder is a mix of a bunch of spices,
You mean a melange?
like a melange, and all the spices that we're talking about are in curry powder. So maybe they're just really big fans of curry. Who knows? Maybe curry makes you live forever. It does
Well, it
open
does
up
have
your,
anti-inflammatory properties.
yeah, and it does open up your sinuses. If I don't have soup when I'm needing, a health boost, um, one of the other things I like to eat is curry. To if I need to open up my like sinuses or something in the winter time. Um, so yeah, there's that movie that and look at how they have their suits. They put that piece in their nose and everything. So
Yeah.
maybe it is some type of curry spice, some medicinal psychedelic curry spice.
If you like, I can read a little bit about it.
Yeah, go on.
In the series, the most essential and valuable commodity in the universe is melange, a drug that gives the user longer lifespan, greater vitality, and heightened awareness. In some humans, the spice can also unlock prescience, a form of precognition based in genetics, but made possible by use of the drug in larger dosages. Among other functions, prescience makes safe and accurate interstellar travel possible. However, melange is also highly addictive, and withdrawal is fatal. Harvesting melange is also a hazardous and extreme, as its only known source is the harsh desert planet Arrakis, or Dune, and melange deposits are guarded by the giant sandworms. Melange is a drug that prolongs life and bestows heightened vitality and awareness. Oh, guess I just read the same thing over again somehow.
You
And
reminded me when
in
you
the
said,
story, the Spacing Guild uses human. What was it?
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say when you said it gave them vitality, and we mentioned turmeric as a spice. One of my go-to teas when I want some tea is, let's see, is turmeric vitality tea.
Honey child turmeric.
And I always picture this tea as like a vitality boost in like a video game. A vitality potion.
Oh yeah.
And it makes your the tea, the liquid orange, so it's like
You
this
kind of,
fresh flow.
I mean, even your hair and your shirt. I mean, you kind of got a curry, cinnamony vibe going on. Really, mustard
Yeah.
seed kind of vibe.
Even though I'm not drinking this tea right now, I'm drinking mushroom tea.
Mushroom
So
root beer, you mean?
yeah, mushroom root beer elixir.
So yeah, the spice thing's pretty cool. But one of the things I've always thought was strange about it was how it's characterized as cinnamon and kind of being red, but yet when humans eat it for long enough periods of time at certain concentrations, their eyes will get the blue within blue uh, look to them. And I just think that that's really peculiar because there must be some type of chemical reaction taking place within the human for it to change from orange to blue. So
That's a good point. Also, I would think that blue is and more precisely electric blue, which is basically the shade that their eyes go in both the Lent version and this Dennis version, and um, that shade of blue is known to be tied to like spiritual life force. It's it's very similar to the color of water, and a lot of times water is equal to life. Um, Jesus usually has a purple or a blue sash, um, and that's also one of the reasons why a lot of times in movies when they're trying to depict a ghost or some type of you know magical power beam, it's usually like that blue. It's all tied to it being life force. Um, and
I see
in
what you mean.
certain cultures, it's also tied to deities um, and spiritual figures in their mythologies. So maybe that chemical reaction of them having the spice, I mean, it's going from that orange red, that hot, to the cool, that blue. It's like I said, it's life force energy. It's giving them a boost, it's making them more heightened spiritually. Um, it also reminds me of how in the story they say, Paul Modi must go from the north to the south, from the hot to the cold, the red to the blue, the left to the right. So that's what it makes me think of. But yeah, go on with what you were saying, Branch.
Oh, I was just kind of reading here about this quote here. So, Paul's sister Alia says in Children of Dune, which again it's book 3, quote, "The spice is often called the secret coinage. Without melange, the Spacing Guild's highliners could not move. Without melange and its amplification of the human immunogenic system, life expectancy for the very rich degenerated by a factor of at least 4. Even the vast middle class of the Imperium ate diluted melange in small sprinklings with at least 1 meal a day." So just to kind of show, uh, you know, even normal folk, could possibly eat small amounts. But that's just to show the trickle down effect, right? But then on the planet of Arrakis, the Fremen were natives. And so it was in their air, it was in their water, it was in their food, it was in everything they had. So they had the blue within blue eyes that you would only normally see with royalty. And so in that way, the Fremen themselves were kind of like a ruling class of sorts when you viewed through the strict melange lens.
Yeah, maybe because they was they're children of the desert. They are connected to
The source.
the source, the nature, and versus other cultures who may have some level of connected to that, but not very, especially not the Harkonnen.
Right.
Because the Harkonnen is supposed to be inorganic, far removed, complete opposite of the Fremen. So, yeah, there definitely is something there. Next, to kind of go back to Grim Adventures of Billy Mandy, the credits do end with some tarot cards. And so we have some
Billy
up here.
shown there. Which one would that be? Can you guess?
That would be the Fool card, Billy the Fool.
Which I think fits that character pretty well. He's definitely a moron.
Yeah.
In the show.
Yeah.
And the various Duncans are all kind of fools in their own way. So I think that it was kind of interesting how, we got Billy being depicted as the fool, but also as Duncan Idaho. And there is something in Dune known as the Dune Tarot. So it's kind of peculiar how that really strange little overlap seems to have taken place. So it makes me wonder, with their thorough understanding of Book 4, maybe that's also intentional to some degree.
Yeah. Next we have Grim. Of course, Grim is death. I mean, that's a pretty easy one, right?
Yeah.
The last one we have here is a Mandy, and it looks like she's the Empress. What's the other card that you thought she might be?
Possibly Queen of Wands, because it kind of looks like she might have a wand in her hand. I couldn't quite tell what that was.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
That's a good second guess. I would just guess Empress because they're doing the God Emperor Dune.
Well, I figured as much. But
Yeah.
she's an interesting character with some complexity. So I wasn't really sure. I thought, well, maybe there's a reason it's a wand and I'm just missing it. But I initially thought Empress.
Yeah. Yeah. Mandy is an interesting character since she oftentimes will break the fourth wall, and kind of be the manipulative one for the story to drive it forward.
She's like an intellect or something.
Yeah, where Billy, he will usually cause the starting conflict the majority of the time because of his um, aloofness.
Oh, when you think about it, it's like she's like the mind and he's like the body or something. And then I
Yeah,
don't know,
that yeah.
maybe Grim represents, well, Grim is the bones, so which is also the body, or that's where the blood comes from, is the bones, right? So maybe in a weird way, it's like the id, ego, and superego, or mind,
I could
body, and soul,
I could see that. I could definitely see that. Um,
which is pretty abstract,
yeah,
actually. So maybe there's some
because
depth to this cartoon.
Grimm, you couldn't really tell it in the episode that we watched, but Grimm is the most emotional one out of all of them.
Yet he's
Um,
a skeleton.
yeah, he's very sensitive. Um, Manny oftentimes hurt his feelings or will anger, or Billy may anger him, you know, where Mandy is super cynical and refuses really to emote, where Billy is so much of a space head that emotions just flew right through him in a way to where it's like by the time he even realizes that he's crying, he's happy again, right?
Yeah.
Um, where Graham, um, he really he'll if he's upset for like probably the majority of the episode until the conflict is resolved, or if he's sad, then he's probably gonna be sad for the majority of the episode. If he's angry and wanting to get rid of Billy and Mandy, he's probably going to be doing that for the majority of the episode. So maybe in a very, it is very abstract, but maybe we are onto something. Maybe it is the body, mind, spirit, the id, ego, and super ego. That's a really good kind of thing to ponder when we're talking about this. And again, obviously they know these archetypes, so I would not be surprised.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's what tarot is all about, really, are archetypes. So, I mean, if you think about it, it's like they're all three the same character,
yeah,
but
and the show
three
doesn't
different
work without
aspects.
all three of them together,
Yeah,
right? Um, you never really have an episode where only two of them interact or something. They all some way function to move the story through the beats in
and
one way or
nor
the
would it
other.
work, nor would it work if it were just one character with three
Yeah,
aspects. So it's quite an interesting plot device when a writer knows that they need a dynamic and they kind of have to work out the equation, so to speak. It's like, well, I need this formula or these moving parts, so I'll create a, rather than create one character with these three qualities, I'll create three characters with these exaggerated qualities. And yeah, I think that's very clever
yeah.
plot device.
Billy might do something and Mandy will let it unfold because she wants to see where it leads to, or she wants to use what he's doing for her own goals.
Right.
And then in doing so, they both manipulate Grimm, the emotion, to use his paranormal power, like his scythe or his occult chest he keeps in their basement for some reason. Um, yeah, so there's that, and of course, to move on, Dune also, of course, has tarot here, and so let's look at these cards for a moment.
And it should be noted that there's no official Dune Tarot, although it is mentioned in the books. It never gives like absolute descriptions or any great detail about it. So, which is kind of nice because it leaves it open to interpretation a little bit. Um, I mean, you'll find a number of different artists whom have created versions of the Doom Tarot, like you see here in front of us. Um, I've seen some others that are more like digital art. But then in the Dune sci-fi series, Dune, uh, when you get into like book 2, book 3, Children of Dune, um, the Reverend Mother, Helen Mohiam, the head Reverend Mother, she's, spoiler alert, she is implicated in a plot to overthrow Moadib because it's Haderach. And because of that, she's thrown into prison and she's sitting there awaiting her fate. And as she is, she's um, laying down tarot cards, Dune tarot cards. But in the show, or the movie rather, they're like metal plates. They're like hexagonal or octagonal, and they kind of fit together in like a honeycomb kind of pattern. And I've never seen Dune, or excuse me, tarot uh, laid out in such a way. So that was kind of provocative to me to see it done in a very original kind of way. Um, but at any rate, uh, one of the big things that's kind of mentioned a lot in the books regarding the tarot is how things were so cloudy and murky because of Moadib's prescience. He was able to cloud the tarot. In other words, um, he could interrupt influence. He could overpower uh, the aspects of things. You know, it's like he could impose his will over the natural order. It was just like a hard concept to explain, I guess, in words. But and that's really what the Reverend Mother was grappling with. You know, she realized that he himself was a force of nature, and that she wasn't able to escape him. And this scene in Children of Dune um, is actually modeled. Some people think this anyway. I'm inclined to agree. But some people think that this may have been a scene modeled after Mary, Queen of Scots, who was imprisoned and I guess executed. And so here we see Helen Mohiam plotting her escape, trying to figure out a way to get out, using the Dune Tarot to like try and figure out a way to get out of her situation that's hopeless. Well, Mary Queen of Scots was doing the same thing with playing cards, which playing cards are the minor arcana of the tarot. You have your 4 suits of tarot, 4 suits of cards, and of course you got your numbers in each. So what you won't find in the playing cards, however, are the major arcana, and these are all the trump cards that people are kind of familiar with when they think of tarot. So I've always been kind of fascinated by that factoid. Um, and so what Mary Stuart was really doing was working with the minor arcana of the tarot and trying to use it in such a way that she could find some way to weasel out of her fate. Um, and so, really, this is where we get solitaire from, I think, because the game she was playing with herself, she was solitary. And so, the game she was playing with herself was solitaire. She was looking for relationships and paths and connections that she could try and develop a plan to get out of her trap, right? So, of course, that wasn't in the skit, um, but man, that's it's such a treat. I'm glad that the adaptation of Children of Dune incorporated such a powerful and layered scene for us, because that had some deep meaning to it for me. Really appreciated it. But that's called the Patience of the Medici, the I guess solitaire. It's like a
Yeah.
form of divination or an
A
attempt at
or like spider solitaire.
it. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Um, which I'll get into this morning in our full on Dune discussion. Um, I thought, Paul not being able to escape his fate is, you know, and the Bene Gesserits trying to steer um, universal events in this case with the story. Um, they're trying to weave a narrative. Um, so there's some uh, weaving fate, uh, weaver crone stuff happening with them. Um, yeah, and I can get way more into that and what I think that means to the story in our full-on discussion. Um, and part of that is, like you said, in the TV miniseries that Children of Dune and Dune Messiah from 2000. They have the hexagonal tarot cards, um, and tarot cards can be tied to weaving uh, these archetypes of past, present, and future, and the story beats together. Um, if like I mentioned in our Guide to Playwright video, if you lay out the tarot cards, you can form the hero's journey.
Oh yeah,
So it's as if the tarot card is just it's many archetypes, but in a way, it's also just one character going through that journey.
exactly.
Um, so yeah, I I was trying to find a good representation of Dune Tarot. This is probably the best one I've found that wasn't just
This is pretty good.
digital art, and I thought these was pretty neat. Um, was there any that stuck out to you, Branch, out of
Um,
these?
I mean, I don't like all of them, but some of them are kind of cool, like the Ixion with the gears and stuff. That planet was known for creating machines and technology and things like that. So I think that's a really cool way to kind of maybe show that emphasis there. Um, there's the Great Worm in the bottom left corner, of course. How could you not like the Great Worm, the gaping maw of the Great Worm? And
Yeah,
then,
instead of the whirl card
yeah,
or the
and then you
wheel.
got Al Liat. I'm not real sure what that is, but it's got the worm stretching up toward the sun. I think that was a pretty cool one. Although I probably would have named that one like Old Man of the Desert or Shai Halud or something like that.
Yeah,
Um, or maybe that's what that's supposed to be, is Shai Halud. Uh, the moon is cool because one of the details that we get from the lore is that there's actually two moons visible from Arrakis. So that's a really cool card in that regard. Uh,
yeah,
Erg, um, I like the term more than I like the card. I think the card's kind of busy. Can't really tell what's going on there. Um, but the Erg, as it's known, is like the great wilderness of desert. So, getting across that without dying because of worms, dehydration, just heat exposure. There's a lot of different things that could kill you out on the Erg. So, yeah, I'm glad that they kind of featured that.
Yeah. Um, yeah, obviously, like many great epics, good stories. Frank Herbert, who was a very interesting guy, and we can talk about him in our full Dune discussion and his background a little bit. But he, like many traditional authors and storytellers, understood these archetypes, and that's why the themes fit so well. Um, and the question that we can ponder is, um, in 2024 with Dennis's Dune films and his perspective on the story, um, is he classically trained to understand these archetypes, these themes, especially since the fact that he's come out and say that he's afraid of the deeper esoteric side of the letter of the books, as I mentioned earlier in this video. So that's something that we can put in our mind cauldron and ponder leading up to our full Dune discussion as well. Um, I don't think there was much I wanted to talk about else in this video besides mentioning the fact that it's something that the Grown Adventures of Billy and Mandy as episode had me pondering, as many things like this has, and that is, should we be drawing some of these themes, more matured themes, and be putting it in children's stories, children's cartoons? Um, I'm not um, a stingy, stuck up person where like, oh, you guys are shelter everything 100%. We have to have some exposure to the world. We have to have our feet rooted on the earth to ground. Um, we have to feel the sun in our face, sort of thing, right? Um, but as Branch and I have talked about before, in a lot of practices, you have to be a certain age before you are able to do something to move on through the ranks or to be able to read certain materials. Um,
Yes.
and I think naturally we do as well, you know. Um, there's some things that, I understand now as a young man that I did not understand, you know, when I was a teenager. And I'm sure I know for a fact there's going to be things that I understand when I'm an older man that I don't really understand now. So it's that progression of your story, in a way. So that's how I see it. And I think that's where, when we are creating a story for youths, we should keep that in mind, to be like, okay, this is our demographic of our story. We should at least try to weave in the themes, the lessons, the archetypes that will best suit them in their stages of life when they're watching this. And of course, it's different from having a kids show or a kids story or a kids movie and a family show, family story, family movie. One is for just one specific age, one is for a group of people of various ages. So there's that difference. So you're just pondering, should they be drawing, like I said, these themes from the Dune story and putting it in Billy and Mandy, as well as these Lovecraftian and other occult paranormal
Entities.
influences. Yeah. And that's not to box in creativity. It is that should help funnel your creativity into one straight line. So yeah, I think that's an interesting thing to ponder. I know before we go, today actually, Branch actually sent me a video of a bumper of sorts that was on Cartoon Network. I'm pretty sure it's probably an Adult Swim bumper. Most
It had
likely.
a few different ones. Yeah.
Yeah. And so even there, we have late night television, which is for a different demographic, versus daytime television, which is for another demographic. And the themes are probably going to be different as well. Where something that you would see on Cartoon Network it might be far out there, like Billy and Mandy, but there's still going to be somewhat of a limit, where something that you might see at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on Adult Swim might be highly weird, Masonic, matured, even exploitation in a way. So yeah, there's that. Is there anything you want to say on that, Branch?
Just that she was exploiting the spice or the cinnamon.
Yeah, yep. As Dune does, as the Bene Gesserits exploit not just their abilities and their control, but they exploit the power of myth and faith in a way.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So yeah, there's times when you should, as you reflect and ponder your own story, you should also be pondering the myths that you're told, and hold on to your faith. um, any final thoughts on any of this branch? I think this is a good place to end the stream here.
The spice must flow, or I guess the cinnamon in this case.
Yes, indeed. Um,
You
yeah,
mentioned we'll be doing another Dune themed episode, so this is our prologue you mentioned at the beginning of the show, I think. So
yeah.
maybe
This
that's
is
worth
a
mentioning.
prologue of sorts to our larger Dune episode. I do have one other Dune episode out there where I was my first guest appearance on Weaving Spiders Welcome on Spiders on Spice versus the Worm. That was the first video of that I was involved in doing a esoteric analysis of sorts. And Branch, you also have a video out there
That's
on
correct.
the interweb of you analyzing Dune.
With Benjamin Balderson and Brandon Bonanza of the Oversharing channel. I can't remember exactly what the name of it is. And then I guess that's Odin's Alchemy, Benjamin Balderson's. But yeah, we did a nice Dune discussion. Maybe even Alan Marcus was with us for that. But it was a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm not sure where exactly you could find it, but it is out there somewhere, and it was fun.
Yeah. And of course, like I said, we have our full Dune discussion that would be about all things Dune.
Oh yeah,
Um, and of course, we'll be talking about Dune Part 2 that just came out here in this year of 2024. Um, yeah, and our Dune episode on King of Cups that we'll be doing soon is just is called Just Another Messiah in the Sand. So look for that episode on King of Cups, and we'll be talking in great detail. Darren, we have a lot of good stuff to talk about. I'm really stoked for it. Got a lot of things bubbling in my mind cauldron that I would like to talk about, and I know that the branch has a lot of good stuff. Um, he wants to talk about over Dune, and of course more videos after that. Of course, thanks everyone for watching this video.
Woo!
And this was a good first technical test of our live streaming capabilities. Thanks again for the branch for joining in.
Of course.
And I agree with what the branch said. The spice must flow. The chalice must be empty to be filled up again on King of Cups.
Need some
So,
spice chai.
yeah,
See you guys in the future.
have a good one, everyone. Until next time. And we will be back with more esoteric film analysis.